Alright, so we're back once again, and today I thought we'd actually go through a game of the ranked process, or the ranked mode, and kind of go through my thought process during a game. Usually I don't really do this, usually I have like an overarching theme that I talk about, and the gameplay is more of a secondary consideration, but today I thought, why not flip it up? And it's not at all because I don't have any more content left. So, what is the thought process that you want to have when you're playing ranked? And more so, not so much ranked, but more ranked in a DD. Because generally people think that DDs are impossible to play in ranked or impossible to win with, when really they're probably one of the most important and potent ship types in the entire mode, and in the entire game at all. You can really very easily carry while playing DDs, whereas with other ship types you might not actually be able to kind of impose yourself so much in the game. So the first thing you want to do is look at tab. Look at all the enemy ships in the game, and even look at some of your own. And on the enemy team is the Yamato, the Goliath, the Petropavlovsk, Summers, Shimakaze, Smolensk, and the Jutland. Now the big thing you want to point out here is that there are 2 radars on the enemy team. And so, how does that affect what you do? How does that affect where you go, how you shoot, when to shoot? These are all considerations that you need to take into account. The first thing you want to look out for is spotting where enemy radars are. And for example, the Petropavlovsk just popping up on my left hand flank and the Smolensk popping up right in front of me, that tells me a couple of things. One, I'm never, ever in the history of this game or anything else am I going to be able to contest CCAP. That's just not going to happen. That's completely out of my possibility. Especially when the enemy team has 2 radars covering the entire cap, it's just not going to happen. Now again, that's not to say that the enemy team can cap it either. At some point, just having appropriate coverage on the cap is all you need to stop the enemy team from doing it, or capping it, even if they have radar. So again, now we've eliminated one possibility. We can't go to C-cap. What's our next option? Well, we could cap the other caps, or we could go wide on the flanks. But generally we don't really want to extend ourselves too wide because, again, that really removes you from the game. So going to the 1 line or the 10 line isn't really a good option. So that limits what we can do even further. Now, we could push through this little gap right here, but again, that's not something you really want to do because if you look at where the Smolensk is positioned, they still have coverage on that area with the radar. Even if you could take on the Summers in a 1v1, it still wouldn't be a good outcome. So instead, what we're going to do is that we're going to team up with the Marceau and we're going to push, again, this right flank a little bit, but we're not going to extend ourselves so far as to completely eliminate ourselves from the game. Again, remember, the one thing you want to have in every single game you play is impact. You want to be impacting the game as much as possible at every single point in the game. And so, in our little adventure to the right hand flank, we do spot the Jutland, and so we are going to start farming him. Now, any normal person in WoWs would look at this matchup, i.e. a Shimakaze and a Jutland, and look at RDDs, i.e. a Daring and a Marceau, and know it's only really going to go one way. And so, while the Jutland recognizes this and tries to escape, he has no real way of escaping, mostly due to the fact that the Marceau spots him and we end up getting the first kill of the game. Now this tells me one thing, and one thing only. We now have to push this flank extremely hard. If you look on the other side of the map, you'll see the Stalingrad and the Shimakaze taking a wide line and trying to do the same thing. And so what that tells me is that the Petropavlovsk is going to be occupied with dealing with that, and he can't really use his radar to affect this flank. Same thing with the Smolensk. Sure, he can come over here, but again, the only ships on this flank are the Shimakaze, are the Summers really, and maybe the Smolensk, but he's been spotted right now in C. And so we need to generate pressure on this other flank in order to be, again, imposing ourselves on the game and being effective. Again, the Marceau is a bit of a faster DD, so he can take a little bit of a wider line here, whereas I really want to stick tight to the island. And I do this very deliberately because I want to be able to get back into the center of the map as much as possible. Again, central positioning is so incredibly important in this game. I really cannot overstate that. Central positioning allows so much versatility in everything you do. You don't want to be wide on one flank, even if you dominate it, even if you destroy all their ships on that flank, and then suddenly you look back on the other side of the map and you see all your enemy teammates dead, and the center of the map basically, in control of the enemy team. So again, that's not to say that you can never go on a flank. You can. But again, be cognizant of what you're sacrificing when you decide to go and push really, really wide. Because oftentimes I see people, either going down this 10 line right here, or going down this 1 line and thinking, I'm going to push here, I'm going to flank them, and I'm going to win the game for my team. But it takes them so long to push that flank. They're going there for 2, 3, 4 minutes, and by the time they actually get into a flanking position, the ships that were, possibly could have been compromised in that position are now just winning the game so hard that they just turn around and blop them. And so the Småland, with a little bit of lag, pops up here. Again, at this point, I don't really want to engage in a straight up 1v1 here, because I have a lot to lose and not all that much to gain. Sure, if I win with like 100 HP, it's a great bonus, but again, I risk losing so much more. I risk losing the control of this flank, I risk losing this cap too, and potentially actually the game. Because if you look on the other flank right now, you see our Stalingrad went down. They didn't lose any ships really. Their Petropavlovsk and their Yamato's in a pretty fine position, although be a little bit low. But again, the way you want to look at decisions you make, plays you make in the game, is what am I going to lose first if this goes wrong? And then after that you look at, okay, what do I look to gain if this goes well? Again, there's no real reason here why I don't pull back. Wait for the Marceau to double team with me, and we can dominate them whenever. There's nothing worse than in a game of ranked with a team who wants to win harder all the time. And myself, I can fall into these habits too, so do not think I'm immune to this either. I definitely do play into it a little bit. But with that being said, we're now in control of B pretty effectively. We should be able to get this cap without all that much trouble. If you look, you see the Yamato is like 13 kilometers away, Petropavlovsk 16, Goliath 14 kilometers. Yeah, again, we can pretty easily dodge their shells from this range, so they're not all that much of a concern. Again, this is my first mistake right here, or I don't know, maybe a better player will be able to tell me many more mistakes, but smoke firing in this position, when you have a Somers in smoke and a Småland being able to spot me, is not the best idea. And I end up taking some unnecessary damage. But in popping the smoke, I do get some very important information. I get a positioning on the Småland. He's to my left right now, and he's right here. And I know this because when the smoke popped, and obviously it pops behind you, my detection automatically went away. And that tells me the direction in which the Småland is. And as luck would have it, he pops up exactly where I thought he would be. And with the help of the Stalingrad and the Marceau, we get the second kill of the game, which is always very nice. Unfortunately, the Marceau does go down, which is a little bit unlucky, but again, not all that much of a concern. Myself and the Somers, we can have a fight 1v1, and I think it'll go pretty well for me, even if I am down on about 2000 HP, which is not that big of a deal. Now, if we look at the game state, if we look at the map, we can see the enemy team is a little bit boxed in, and they're in a little bit of a rough spot. We do have control over 2 caps. C caps still hasn't been capped, which is something I predicted at the start of the game. Especially when you include radars in this map, it tends to get a little bit mid-rushy, if that makes sense. So right now, we have A, we have B. I'm aware that the Somers is probably going to try and get into B at this point, but right now, I just want to get into a position where I can affect the other ships on the map, because I know I can 1v1 the Somers if he pops up. That's not a major concern for me. What a major concern for me is actually, imposing myself on other ships in the game. Giving another ship another thing to worry about, or another thing to think about. That's always what you need to be thinking about. And so, we see the Yamato reversing, and at 15 or 14k HP, we can easily kill this guy within one smoke. He gets another fire set on him, he's down to about 9k, and well, there's not much left to do other than just farm him. Now if you look on the minimap, you'll see that the Summers is contesting B, which is something I'm aware of. I'm also popping my Hydro because, well, what's one thing that the Summers and Hydro have in common? I don't know where I was going with that, because that doesn't even make sense, but the Hydro, popping it, makes us aware of the torpedoes a little bit earlier, and avoids us making a silly mistake. And so now, what we want to be doing is, with the Yamato dead, there's only one thing left to really do, and that is kill the Summers. Because once the Summers goes down, we effectively won the game. Now, you could argue right here is that you don't really want to take the engagement. Again, I might have a lot to lose here, not all that much to gain. Say if I die here, or if he gets like a detonation or something, then the game suddenly turns into a 2v2, and the point difference isn't significant enough that we automatically win if time just runs out. So again, be cognizant of the decisions that you're making, and make sure that you're not sacrificing, or you don't have a very skewed risk-reward profile. Again, you don't want to take a risk that has like increases your chances of winning the game to like 51%, and if it goes wrong, you automatically lose the game. That's just not a good decision to take. Obviously, I don't follow my own advice. I push the Summers, partially because he didn't have torpedoes left, because we just spotted them, but also because I'm a bit of an idiot. So, with that being said, we're going to push into B, cap it, and close out the game. Again, at this point in the game, the Petropavlovsk probably doesn't have any more radar charges left, so the Nutrashima, I don't know, I can't even pronounce that name. He isn't risking all that much in taking him on. So, but with that being said, we're going to farm down the Petropavlovsk and finish him off. But I hope this gives a little bit more of an insight into how I think about playing the game and the decisions that I make in the game. I know it can sometimes become overwhelming when you're actually in a game, and you can have a tendency to panic. I know I do sometimes, especially in very intense 1v1 situations, but I hope this gives a little bit more insight. And until next time, I'll see you all in the next one.